Hey guys, and welcome back to the vlog. You know, you might have looked at the thumbnail and thinks this is some kind of joke, or I'm trying to make light of the supernatural or people who believe in ghosts, but I'm not. This is a very unbelievable story, and as I'm getting in, it's not one of my stories. It's the it's the owner of the houses of the murder house, 24 Sanford Row. Um, I personally don't really believe in ghosts, but I don't believe that they don't exist either. I've seen several documentaries on the subject, and it brings up the hair on the back of your neck. Okay, as this one will. Excuse me. Once I get rolling here. Okay, so now the Malish story is behind us. This picture was taken by me in 1995. And the reason that you don't see this story in the book, because the book was already printed. The publishers asked me to take a run out to Fairlawn and get a picture of the house so they can put it in the book. And in my book, Cop Without a Badge, The Extraordinary Undercover Life of Yours Truly, you'll see this photograph with the Ford station wagon in the driveway. Okay. In this house, you had all these murderers. And the last one we're going to be talking about in the next video is going to be this guy, Ronald Schofield. So we're gonna do. Okay, so I don't want to get ahead of this story creeps me out. So the publisher asked me to go and get a photograph of the house, which I do. I go over there, take the photograph. I see a car parked in the driveway. So what do? Hello? I knock on the door because I always wondered who in their right mind would buy that house. Now, let's go back to when I was waiting to testify at Melissa's trial, and I was stuck in Dennis Carroll, the prosecutor's office. I'm stuck there. We thought that my wife, Beth, was going to only be a half a day, but she turns out to be the whole day. So I was stuck in Dennis's office all by myself, no TV. And anyway, I'm there, and I looked at the crime scene photographs for the first time in 4 years. I'm looking at them. I'm seeing there's blood, walls, floors, ceiling, all over the place. There's 3 people got their throats slit, and it was terrible. It was more than terrible. But boy, did it light a fire under my ass the following day when I testified against this piece of shit. That's what I did. So I'm going light and brown. I don't know how to work these. Anyway, so I go over there. Now I know the way the house looked. I know that the police removed cabinet doors in the kitchen where little Harold was slaughtered, and I know, and I know, and the house at this time in 1995 looked just as it did in 1979, or when I lived there with Beth. So I knock on the door, and this man in his 50s with a thick Jewish accent answers the door. Very low-key guy. Hell, he drove a Ford station wagon. So how much normal can he be? Ford, a piece of crap right there. That was his only mode of transportation was a Ford Taurus station wagon. I said, hi, how you doing? I says, my name is Kevin Marr. Big pause. And I used to live here. He said, okay. And very matter of fact, I'm emphasizing what this guy was, because when this story comes out, I mean, a very matter of fact, it reminded me of Spock, you know, very logical, very low key, and just a nice guy. Just 50-year-old guy, single, and he bought his little house in Fairmont. So I tell him that I used to live there. And his response was, okay, and I said, I used to live here in 1975 and 1976. Oh, okay, okay. I says, and there was an incident that took place in this house in March of 79. And he just stared at me. And I said, are you aware of what happened in this house in March of 79? And he shook his head, yeah. It was a matter of fact. Everything about him, even the way he said, yes. What the fucking joke, the guy. How much more hints do I have to get? I go, okay. I said, okay. So he acknowledges that he knows what happened. And he's giving me the creeps. Even today, talking this story, it's kind of fucking creepy. Who the fuck would live in that house knowing a little boy got head fucking decapitated? Woo, shit. I'm standing on the porch. When I'm having this conversation with him, I'm right here. I'm right standing on the door. He's got the door opened up, and I can see the stairs going up to the second floor where Alice was almost murdered. So I go, okay, so he tells me he knows what happens. And I say, excuse me, I'm trying to clear my throat. And I say, who did you buy this house off of? Was it Brian Malise? And he said, yes. And I said, and you know what happened here? He said, yes. And I said, in what condition was the house when you bought it? He went, he goes, it was a mess. He goes, it was a mess. There was blood from ceiling to wall, just as I know it was. And no, I think I asked him, okay, so he says, yes, it was a mess. And I said, so you bought it as is with all the blood and everything on there? He goes, yes, but I got such a deal. I got such a deal. It was such a deal. Such a deal. What the fuck? Such a deal. How do you sleep at night? So he goes, it was such a deal. And I said, how do you, I mean, the place, I don't want to freak people out. Maybe I do a little bit because I got freaked out. Why shouldn't you get freaked out if you're listening to this story? Why shouldn't you get, who are you, audience, that ain't going to get freaked out? So I was freaked out. I saw the way it was covered. It was covered. I mean, it looked like bodies exploded in there. I mean, it was covered. Who the hell would buy that house? Never mind that, today, in today's, if there's a murder scene like that, they have hazmat companies that come out where people die and they rot into the floor and stuff. And they have professional guys that come in moon suits, hazmat suits, and they come and they describe. And here's this guy describing to me, now I want to know, how the hell did you get all that blood out of all the cabinets and everything like that? So I go, how the hell? He goes, I got such a deal. I got such a deal. How could I think he paid somewhere in the neighborhood of like $70,000 on a house that was probably worth $100,000 more than that. That's what he did. He did this. So he says, I says, he says, all I did, you couldn't clean it off, so he had to paint. And he says, yeah, I got this cheap brand of paint, and I would paint it, and it looked like it was covered. And then once it dried, the blood came right back. And I painted it again. And I painted it again. Same thing happened 3 times. And this is not an endorsement of Benjamin Moore paint. I have not been, although Benjamin Ward paint, you should talk to me because I'm gonna bump up your sales after this little commercial. But I am not sponsored by anybody by Benjamin Moore paint. Benjamin Moore paint was a premium paint at that time, and I think they're still in business. So he says, "Yeah, but I bought a gallon of Benjamin Moore and one coat." They used to advertise. We don't care what your walls look like. One coat of our paint on your wall will cover anything. That was their logo. Not logo, but that was their the selling pitch for the paint. And it was on at that time. They had commercials about it and everything. So he goes true to their advertising, one paint, and it was gone. The blood stains were gone. I said, I forget the guy's name. I said, no, the blood stain isn't gone. It's just covered up. It's still there. Still there. So now, after hearing that story, I became a little creeped out. Not a little, a lot creeped out. And I'm looking around the house. This is where I live. This is where I met my first wife, Beth. This is where I met Bobby, her son that would later become my stepson. And he was the same age as Harold. When I got Beth and Bobby out of the house, Harold and Marshall moved in, and they were the ones that were murdered instead of Beth and Bobby. Unbelievable story, but true. So we're downstairs in the living room area, and my attention is drawn to the staircase where this mutt was beating the life out of his wife, Alice, at the time, when he showed up with this guy. That's in one of the videos that I just recently did. And so I said, whatever the guy's name was, again, I can't emphasize this enough. And people are going to probably say, all right, you already told us, you already told. Very believable, credible guy. Just meeting him for these 5 minutes into the meet. Very, very credible guy. Very credible. Not looking to impress somebody like me, I guess. I tell these stories. People think I'm trying to impress them, but it's the truth. It's a true story. So my attention is drawn to the staircase, and I'm saying right about there is where this piece of shit was beating his wife in the face, and who would later murder her and sexually assault her with a 14-inch serrated kitchen knife, 40 times stabbed. So I said, would you mind if I could go upstairs and just look around? I says, I'm getting goosebumps. I used to live here. I knew the people that were murdered here. And then I start telling them who I am and why I'm there. I told them that my name is Kevin Marr, and I was a government informant. And we just finished writing a book. And the publishers asked me to take a picture of the house. Your house is going to be in a book called Cop Without a Badge. I said, oh, that's fine. Get me a copy. Like, aren't you worried that everybody's going to now know what? Anyway, this is the kind of guy. And I said, would you mind if you took me upstairs and we take a look at the place? And it looked exactly the way it did in 1975. Now, I'm going to digress a little bit. I did a video, one of my first or second videos on this channel. You guys can go back, where I did a video about the house. Me and my editor jumped in my car and we drove all across the country from California to New Jersey. And guess what? The house was for sale. It was an open house, and we got in the house, and I actually filmed in the house and told where all the bodies were and everything. And then what happened? I recently went back like a year ago. I knocked on the door and I talked to the new owner. Well, maybe we'll do a little video on what that guy. It's an Asian family that lives there to this day. So anyway, he goes, yeah, come on up. And he's walking ahead of me up the staircase. And that even back then, it creaked. Because back then, if you had to get a glass of water or something from the refrigerator, you would go down the stairs and it would creak like a fucking haunted house. Like a haunted house. House on Haunted Hill had nothing over this house. So as I'm going up the stairs, he's at the second floor landing. I'm halfway up. And I said, hey, Hershey or whatever, Hershey or someone's name, I forget his name. I said, hey, did you ever have to get up in the middle of the night and go down to get some juice or something and go down these stairs when it's dark? Did you ever get like spooked out over it? He goes, no. Get up to the top of the staircase. And now to my left, I see Harold's room. Behind, right across the hall from that was the master bedroom where Alice lived. And then behind me was the bedroom that me and Beth shared. So I don't know remember how exactly go. I said, so did you ever get creeped out? No. Talking about walking down the stairs in the middle of the night. He goes, no. I said, did you ever get this sense of maybe, because I was getting this feeling that there was something, because I knew what happened. I knew what happened. I knew where it happened. I knew when it happened. I knew. I seen the photographs. I knew these people. And I said, he goes, no. He goes, no. Like he's just like one of those guys. And you want to just joke, like, don't you have any feelings? What the fuck, Benjamin Ward Payne? Are you kidding me? So he goes, there was an incident that kind of raised the hair on the back of my neck. And it happened the first Halloween that I was there. First Halloween. Spooks and Goblins, Halloween. Spooks and Goblins. Right after he moved in, when I say he bought the house as is, he bought the house as is. Had all the victims' clothing and personal belongings still in it. And he said, I had a big black garbage bag. And I went into Harold's room and I was emptying his toy chest. And I'm putting all his toys in it to donate it to Goodwill. That's what he did with all the clothing. He got all the clothing, and of course, he donated it to Goodwill. He says, as I'm emptying the toy chest, I'm putting it in, and I pull out a costume. First, I pull out what looked to be a pajama set. He thought there was a white one. It was like a little bodysuit that you jump in, and it was white, and it had a red candy stain on it. He remembered the red candy stain. We put it in the box, and he reaches in, and he gets a plastic pumpkin thing with a strap on it, which the children would use to gather their trick-or-treats in the candy and stuff. It was a orange Halloween pumpkin, and he put that in. Then he reached in, and he got the mask of Casper the Friendly Ghost. Casper the Friendly Ghost, the friendliest ghost we know. It's a cartoon character that in my day that we used to watch. It's about this little kid ghost, and he flies around and does a bunch of good things, and only children can see him. He looks at the plastic mask that had a little rubber band back in the olden days. That's how the kids wore the mask. And he notices that a little piece is broken off the plastic mask on the right side of the face. So he looks at that, puts it in. Red candy stain, plastic piece on the back of the side of the mask, and he puts it in, and he gathers it up, takes it to Goodwill. Now, there was a Goodwill that was closer to him than the one that he dropped it off at, which was in Passaic, either Paramus or Passaic, New Jersey, which was like 4 or 5 towns over from where he lived. It's not like he took those items and gave them to his local Goodwill or charity. He took it way. I think I did the miles. I think it's like 14 miles, 13 miles. So that's it. All that stuff gone. His Benjamin Ward paint is working as advertised. It's working as advertised. He thinks the paint's gone, but the paint's not gone. The paint's under the Benjamin Ward, none of the cheap shit that he bought. It's still there. The aura of that friggin' thing is still there. It's still there. Still, it gives me the creeps. I'm 3,000 miles away from that house right now as we speak, and I'm still fucking creeped out 30 years later. 30 years later, I'm still creeped out. And he did this. He did this. He did this thing. So, October 31st, the very first Halloween, the guy, Mr. Calm, is in his house, and here comes the trick-or-treaters. Ding dong. Still light out. Still light out when this. He opens the door, and there's a little boy with his pumpkin trick-or-treat bucket, which is the exact same one that he donated 4 towns over 6 months earlier. And he looks, and it's Casper the Friendly Ghost. And now, when he's telling me this story, now you can tell he's even getting freaked out. Mr. Calm, cool, and collective, as he's starting to, and you know, listen, I'm a world-traveled guy. I lived on both coasts in at least a dozen states in my life. I've met all kinds of people. I'm from New York City, which is the melting pot of the world. Every type of person you can think of lands in New York City. And I'm looking at this guy, and I believe him 100%. He's not trying to impress nobody. He's reenacting an event in his mind, and the words are coming out of his mouth. And I can only imagine what I look like. He says, then I look, it's a Casper the Friendly Ghost costume. Now, they were common back then, you know, but the fact of what happened in that house, and then he looks closer and closer and closer, and he sees the piece of plastic off the mask, and then his eyes go down, and he sees the stain. Holy shit, it's the costume that I gave to charity 6 months ago, and it came right back to that doorstep. So he's shocked now. And as he's reenacting this event in his mind and he's explaining it to me, I can tell he's getting emotional now. Now, Mr. Spock, cool, calm, Mr. Logical, now as he recounts this story, and I asked him, he says, you're the only one I ever told this story. So, so the event took place in 1979. We're in 1995. He lived at the house. I think he bought the house in 1980. So, but he's been there 15 years now. And this is the first time he's ever told that story, because this is the first time somebody ever asked him about it. Nobody's ever asked him about it. And these type of people, this type of guy is the guy that don't ask, don't tell. He could care. I mean, he was just like, well, this is the first time he's telling the story in the 15 years that he lived there. This is the first time I'm being the recipient of this story. And he was shocked. He had a bag of candy. He put it in the container that he donated. Now he knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that these 3 items, the gown, the pumpkin, and the mask, came from here with that murdered child. He puts the candle in. He's in shock. The kid shows up at the door all by himself, which is another unusual thing. And for a 6-year-old, I mean, back then, even in the Bronx, we used to trick or treat by ourselves. we get our costume and we would go run into apartments all through the South Bronx, and we would. So maybe back then it was the same way, but today every parent takes his child. When my little daughter was uh, trick or treating, if I had her on Halloween, I would go with her, and she did not leave my sight. Did not leave my sight. But back then it was different. It was what you call the good old days. The days that we live in now aren't. Anyway, so he puts the candy in, and he can't tell whether it's a boy or a girl. He says, "Thanks, mister." Turns around and runs away. No parent, nobody else was there. So I'm not saying that that was a ghost that came to his door. I'm not saying that. I don't believe that. But what do you suppose the chances are of that costume returning to its place of origin 6 months later? What do you suppose the chances of that happening? That costume returned to that door? Or was it a ghost under there? I mean, I'm not a spiritual, I'm not a supernatural guy, but all you guys out there. So anyway, so uh, we did. He said, "Well, get me." He says, "When you, I'd like to read the book." I says, "You got it." And when the book did come out, so now the book. So the reason that that story is not in the book is because the book was already at the Carolyn Glass. They were already editing the book. It was done. They were just sending the pictures into the printer to get the house photograph in there. See, in the back, it even has the number of the. This was the actual photo that was used in the book. Photo number 87. Um, so I thought you guys would I mean, just telling this story is I mean, this is the end of the story for him. This guy we're gonna do next, he's another murderer that came, slept, and lived in this house. How many murders? I mean, it's unbelievable. So I'm a little messed up right now. Just think going back in time. Um, if you guys enjoyed this type of content, please like, subscribe, hit the bell, do the fucking whatever you do over there. And I'll see you next Halloween.